people end up staying longer than they should have just because they're holding on to that hope, right? The potential. If he were to change, then this would work out. If he would treat me differently, if he stopped doing this, if he stopped drinking, if he was home more.
The Ugly Truth of Divorce podcast with Sam and Leah, helping you not just survive, but thrive.
We're going to talk about 5 questions to ask yourself. Should I be getting a divorce?
Yeah.
You know,
this is a good one.
Where did you find this? And then we're going to kind of go into something else a little bit.
Yeah, I actually found this a couple of years ago. I think it might have been a therapist that I was following on Instagram. I should have wrote down actually her name too, but I just wrote down the questions because like these are really fucking good.
Right.
Because that is a question that I get. You know, people will DM me, you know, on TikTok or Instagram and just say, hey, this is where I'm at. I've been following you for a while. I feel like I need to leave. How do you know when it's time to throw in the towel? And so these are just great questions to have on hand to be able to give people so that it helps them gain more clarity.
Did you do any kind of research before you, like, did you ever sit on it and think, okay, let me take one of those old school quizzes in the magazine to figure out if I have more A's than B's, I should get divorced? Or did you just have this gut feeling like,
I just had that gut feeling that kept coming up. Like, it was like, I would get this feeling and then I would be like, okay, I'm going to sit on that for a little while. And then something else would happen. And then that feeling would come back again. And then after, like, you know, I think on average, it says that it takes about 2 years of someone.
I will attest to that.
Take a while. We don't just like at the first sign, like jump to divorce, right? It's something that we like consider and think about and contemplate and try to not do, right? But then you get to a point where you're like, well, I think this is the only option left. So, you know, as always, this episode brought to you by The Next Chapter, our TNC monthly membership. And we're going to head in there every Thursday. Every Monday, we do the live workshops on different topics. And then every Thursday, we go back in and do a live Q&A. So any questions members have, they get to post and we answer them for them. They get both coaches. And then spring is coming, guys. Big changes are happening. So right now you can get into that monthly membership for still only $30. We launched this last summer. It's very popular. It's something that a lot of our clients end up going into. But the price is going up. So you can get in now for $30 or starting April 1st, the price is actually going to increase to $97 for any new member. So if you're already in there, you're locked in. You're grandfathered in at that $30. That's not going up. But for new members starting April 1st, it is going up because there's just you're getting so much value. There's so much information that we're giving you all week long, every week, different topics. Sometimes we even have guests come in like therapists, financial coach, health and wellness coaches. I mean, we're really giving you tons of shit. So the price is now going to be reflective of all of the value that you offer. So get in while you can, guys. It's, you know, $30, cancel whenever you want. But that's where we're going to head in after this.
I mean, and get to be able to get your questions answered, because both you and I do consults where we talk to people for a half hour. You know, you do clarity sessions and I do consults, but inside The Next Chapter, since it is such an exclusive group, we go in like we are right after this, because today is Thursday when we're recording this. We're going in right after this and going to be answering those questions that people post and ask. And we're even changing it again in April. We're going to be posting day-to-day questions to really just get that dialogue going, because we both have support groups. So I'm going to be honest, our support groups are getting really large and things get kind of lost in the mix, and you don't get our one-on-one attention because there is so many people there. So that's where we're really going to be exclusively, you know, putting a lot of our attention is into The Next Chapter. So be thinking about that. Again, those of you that are already in, you're grandfathered in, you get locked in at that $30, but anybody that joins us April 1st and beyond, we are going to be charging what the value is actually worth, which is $97. So let's jump into some questions. Okay. What is the first question that I should ask myself if I'm sitting with my just shitty ex-husband? Well, he's my husband still. And I'm sitting on the bed going,
or partner.
We just got in the most horrific fight for the 97th time. You know, what's the first question I'm asking?
What do I need to be asking myself? So question number 1, do I actually want the relationship to improve, or have I already given up and checked out on some level? That's a good one, right?
That's a good one.
Because people are usually like, okay, well, what about couples therapy? Great. But that takes 2 people to be in it, right? You have to be invested in it and you have to really want things to work.
To work, not to go and say, Leah, you're wrong. I told you. See, here's a third party. I think too many couples go to couples therapy for that therapist to say, you've been running your mouth too much. See, the therapist said, you're
Yeah.
wrong. You're wrong.
That
They go into,
validation.
they're going for
Yeah, yeah.
validation that they're not an asshole or
Right,
a bitch
right.
about something. Yeah.
But it's like you need to really both want it to work. And do you like,
Mhm.
is that what you want? Or these are questions that these are really like you need to be honest with yourself about, right?
Right.
And it's like, or am I already checked out? And I
Mhm.
certainly had gotten to that point. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
can just remember very clearly at the end of my second marriage, we didn't even talk about counseling wasn't even something that we were going to consider because I was done already.
Yeah.
I was already like, no, this
Yeah.
isn't going to work out. I'm not going to
Mhm.
go to counseling because I already know I don't want to be with you. Right. So if you're already checked out, that is a big
Well,
flag.
mine was he would just say to get me back on that hamster wheel, he would say, let's do therapy. And then
Mm.
in the 4 years that we were together, not one appointment was ever made. Like it
Right.
was always like to end the fight or to get me
Classic
to stop
narc
being
move.
mad. Or
Telling you
yeah,
what you
like
wanna hear.
to pull me back in. It was like,
Yeah.
I'll go to therapy with you. I'll go to therapy with you. And it's like, but sitting there, if I was honest with myself, when he would say that, I'd be like, fuck, I don't, I don't want it to work.
Right.
Like I want the fight to end, don't get me wrong, but I don't want it. I don't see, I think I could clearly see therapy was not going to fix our issue.
Right.
And I
Right.
didn't want it to fix an issue. I knew this issue was unresolvable and it was like, no. So I think that's a good question. Like I
Yeah.
didn't want our relationship to work. I just wanted somebody to be the bad guy to say, big bad mistake. Let's end this shit and move on with our lives. Cool. I
Yeah.
agree with that one. I like that's a good question. All right. What's
Yeah.
question number 2?
Okay, so question number 2. What specifically would need to change in order for the relationship to feel viable? And are there reasonable grounds for believing those changes are likely?
A new person.
Yeah.
If it was
And
somebody else, I'd stick around.
that's a great question because you have to ask yourself, like, does this person need to just change, like morph into an entirely different human being in order for this to work? Right.
Right.
And if
Right.
so, how likely is that to happen? Or are there things that if that person and yourself are willing to work on and invest in, are the odds of that happening high? Right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's
Yeah.
like, and this is kind of part of the other question too, so I won't go on it, but you have to really go based on what's actually happening in the relationship. If there's been an issue and it's been like fucking Groundhog Day and it's just coming up again and again and again and again,
Yep.
and there just doesn't seem to be any resolution, then what is the likelihood of that actually changing? If you've expressed, if you've talked about it, if you've thought about it, right? If this person knows what the issue is and they haven't been addressing it, then what's the likelihood that what needs to change in order for the relationship to work? What's the likelihood that it actually will happen?
I think if I look back on I dated a lot of narcs through high
Yeah,
school as
me too.
well. And I know your type, right? And I think it was always I was in a relationship and I was the one serving the whole relationship and I never got service back. Like if
Mm,
you would have asked any of the guys I've ever dated, and even my ex-husband, he didn't know my interests. He didn't know my passions. He didn't know my favorite color. I was always the one that was so invested into that person. Like again, that chameleon type behavior of like, let me morph into your world and make your life better and make you feel, all this. But then
mhm.
when would come back it was never back the other way. There was never like a let me go support you. I remember I coached basketball for the first few years of the marriage because that's what I did before I was married.
Mhm.
And so I was coaching basketball at this small town that was his hometown. And I had babies like right away, right? And I got pregnant, had a baby, and
Yeah.
I had to coach with the baby in the fucking front harness because if I wanted to go do my thing, you had to take the baby with you. But he would
Oh,
come sometimes to the game, so everybody would see him just trying real hard in the front row with, the
yeah,
baby and
Mr.
my
Charming.
stepson, like, "Oh, look at me, I'm allowing her to go do her thing, but look how hard my
Right,
life is that I have to do all this dadding while she's over there coaching." But
right.
then
And when we
anytime
get
we were
home, I'm gonna bitch at her about it.
Oh my god. But then there'd be sometimes he would just, like, get sick of it, like, I gotta go do my thing. So here, I would literally have my stepson sitting on the bench with me and my baby in a fucking carrier on me as I'm coaching because he had to go do his thing. And
Right.
it like and again, then I would be like, "Should I stop coaching? Because this is" there was never, like, this push to be who I wanted to be and, like, things that made me happy. And so I always kept holding on to, well, maybe he'll change and he'll see it. Maybe he'll see
Yeah.
that I need to have my thing too. But no, I mean, it was a one-way mirror all the
Right.
time. One-way mirror. Like never,
Right.
never. So yeah, I think I never saw a possibility of him changing.
Yeah, same with me.
Never.
Like, I mean, there was, especially my second marriage, there was a lot of lying. There was a lot of lying going on his end. And so it was just like, what is the likelihood of him just not doing that anymore? It's not great.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of just who he is, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not like the likelihood is not good.
All
All
right.
right. So, question number 3. Has there ever existed a version of this relationship that was healthy and where each of our needs were being met? Or am I holding on based solely on hope or future potential?
I think holding on to the very beginning of the relationship when it was like cool and easy and like everybody was like kumbaya. I
Mhm,
think that's what I mean, my marriage was short. It was only 4 years. So I
mhm.
think I was holding on to that beginning phase where like, where
Yeah,
did all the swooing go? Like, where did
right.
all the like, you
The
this, you
magic.
that? And like, I mean, granted, if I really look back, it was pretty short lived, but I think I was always like, how do we get that back?
Yeah,
What was I doing to where he was so nice to me back then?
right,
You know? And
right.
again, even just saying that out loud now, I'm like,
Yeah, well, again, classic
"Mm,
narc move. That's how,
I'm
right? They
done."
love bomb you. They tell you
Right.
what you wanna hear. They do the mirroring. They do all those things, and then once they got you locked in, then they start becoming their true selves, and they start
Married,
hammering
barefoot,
at you
pregnant.
and
Yep.
yeah,
Mhm.
tearing you down and making you feel less than and,
Right.
blowing up your self-esteem where there's, like, just bits and pieces of shreds of it left,
Yeah.
and then you're like, "What the fuck? What did I do? Like, why doesn't he love me like he used to in the beginning?" Right? And it's yeah,
But then
it's a
you
mind fuck.
slowly start to like, when he met me, I was outgoing, drinking, had friends, wearing makeup, wearing fun clothes, all this stuff. And then I slowly became this housewife who never went out, never drank, wore
Right.
grandma panties, wore no makeup, no perfume, sports bras. Like I morphed into whatever he wanted me to be. And it
Mhm.
was just like, what happened? Like, didn't you get with me when I was this wild, crazy, fun
Right.
person? And then now you've morphed me into like elderly grandma who doesn't do anything. But I allowed it. I allowed it. It wasn't his fault. I allowed that behavior. Like,
Yeah.
that was all me. So the whole changing, yeah, that one, yeah. I just want to like, I hope all young girls and boys both, like, if you're getting into a relationship and you think this'll stay or this'll get better, I hope it stays, but the second you see that things start to change and wording and behavior and threats or, you do this if you love me type of behavior starts, like run,
Yeah.
run for the
And
hills.
the hope and potential thing is huge
Yeah.
because so many people end up staying longer than they should have just because they're holding on to that hope, right? The potential. If he were to change, then this would work out. If he
Yeah.
would treat me differently, if he stopped doing this, if he stopped drinking, if he was home more, if only he was this other, right? There's the potential that the relationship could work out if only
If
this
only
person
he
would
didn't have the mother he
stop,
had, he'd be different.
right? It's like, so
But
at
I mean, he
some
does.
point,
Yeah,
you
but
have
he
to really
does, right.
stop. Yeah.
Mhm.
And look at the reality of the situation, not the
Right.
hope, not the potential, but what results are actually in front of you. What have you actually been getting? And then that's what you have to base your decision on because hope dies last.
Yeah.
You can hold on to hope for decades, right? I mean, that is the last shred of thing to go. And so that's one of the hardest things for you to let go of is to really just face the truth, the
Mhm.
reality of the situation and base your decisions off of that.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. In addition to love, can I connect to feelings of respect, trust, and admiration for this person?
No.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It is, because I think everybody says like, "Well, I love him," or "I
Yeah,
love her, and so I gotta stay." But when you start throwing those other words,
yeah,
no, no,
right.
nope,
Yeah,
I don't feel those
respect, I
things
think, is
anymore.
probably usually the first to go,
Yeah.
at
Well,
least in my
I
experience.
exactly, and I've always hated that when parents get divorced and they say, "Well, I still love your mom even though we're not." No, you don't.
Right.
Like, and maybe you I don't know, I can't speak for everybody. I'm just
Or you
saying,
could care, about that. I
I
mean, I don't know.
I don't love. I mean, I never told my kids that. Like, "Hey, you know
Yeah,
what? Your dad and I are not in love anymore. I respect him that he has his house, his rules, his policies over there for you, but I am not in love with him anymore." Like,
yeah.
I'm not in love with any of my old boyfriends anymore. Like, so why am I going to, just because we have kids together, I don't have this, like when he walks in a room, I'm not like, "Oh, I'm so no, I don't have
Mhm.
love for him at all." So
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to my kids and say that. But even married, I think that was, as I was contemplating divorce, it was like, I didn't love him and I almost feared him. It got to the point where I was fearing him coming home and fearing his reaction and fearing his words and fearing how he would talk to me and stuff. And so it was like, that's definitely not love. But when you start throwing on
Yeah.
those other words you just said, no, those were
Right.
lost
Respect,
way before
admiration.
too.
And sometimes maybe you do still love, like, let's say that your partner's the one that decided on divorce and that wasn't something you wanted. And maybe you do still love them. But then you have to ask yourself those other questions. Well, why, like, the respect and admiration. Why do I want someone
Who
who
doesn't want
doesn't
me?
want me?
Right. And
Right? Then
then I would
now
read a
it's a
book.
self-worth issue.
If I still thought I was in love with somebody, and we get these clients a lot, if I still thought I was in love with somebody that wrecked my heart and cheated on me or just wanted to end the marriage or something, I would then go read a codependency book and figure out, am I really still in love with this person, or have I just become
Right.
codependent and I don't trust myself alone, or I don't recognize myself alone.
Right.
And that's why I'm so like fiending for this relationship to still exist, because I
Yeah.
don't know myself independently.
Yeah, or
You
you're just
know?
afraid of being alone. I mean, that was me
Yes.
for sure. I was staying in relationships that were awful because
Right.
it was better than just being by myself. Like, at least
Right.
I was with somebody. I mean, that's really where I got it at certain points, and so
Oh, I
sometimes
mean,
that fear.
yeah. Boyfriend to boyfriend to boyfriend to boyfriend, never being alone because thinking that's like status quo. You all through high school, that's what you gotta have. You have to have a
Right.
boyfriend. In college, you got date the same guy, like it was just like I was never really alone until I hit a rock bottom co-parenting phase. Then I spent 2 years where I didn't date, touch, look, nothing at anybody. And those 2 years were my growth years. Those 2 years
Yeah.
where I pulled my head out of my ass and figured out who I was and became a badass. And I depended on no one. But it was honestly the first time since like 5th grade. And that
Mhm.
sounds so sad that I was like 32, 33 years old before I was ever independent with
Yeah.
nobody being in the suggestion box with me.
Right. Right,
Like,
same. I mean, I started dating when I was like 14, I think, and
yeah,
and I was just always like a serial monogamous, just one relationship to the next, and
right.
yeah, I was like terrified of being alone, but it was when I was like, well, I'm just gonna have to fucking figure it out, right? Because like I don't
Yeah,
want to keep finding myself in this situation over and over,
yeah,
so I'm gonna need to figure it out, and that was the best thing. That was the most empowering time of my life, is when I just figured out how to do it all on my own, how to get a
yeah.
new job so I could afford it. I, was living in this teeny, ugly little townhouse, but it was all I could afford. It was for my daughter and I, and I was doing it. I was doing all the
Yeah.
things by myself, and that made me feel so strong and so much more
Mhm.
confident and so much more picky about the
Yeah,
people that I was getting in relationships with, or dating or talking to, because I was like, no, like I'm good. Like
yeah.
I've got this on lockdown, right? Like I've got this figured out. So unless you're going to add a lot of value to my life, it's just not going to work. You're not
Well,
for
and
me.
I think it also makes you so much more appealing to other people to date because
Like
you are sitting
independent.
over there, they're watching you or learn about you and start to introduce themselves to you, and you're like, "Yeah, I do this all on my own," Like, I know that's why our 2 spouses are with us now is because we were
Yeah.
killing it as a single person and doing it
Right.
well, and it made us so attractive,
Right.
to them, because we didn't need them for anything, and I didn't
Yeah.
need them for shit,
Yeah. It
and
totally changes the dynamic of
mhm.
the relationship.
There's no power
Yeah.
to have them take from you because I honed every part of myself, my body,
Right.
my finances, my mental state, my kids, everything was mine. There was nothing like, "I need you to help me." No, I didn't need
Yeah.
shit from you.
Right.
And so I was giving no power away at the beginning of the relationship. There was no ownership of my love or my feeling, nothing. It was like, I own mine. This is how I feel about me. And, you can tag along if you want, but I don't need you to be here.
Mhm.
And it was such a different feeling than this whole like, will he say yes when I send my friend over to ask him out for me because I'm too much
Right.
of a scaredy cat when I'm a junior in high school? Like it was stupid stuff like that that I'd done my whole life. And then when Jared walked in, it was like, I own this. This is who I am. If you don't like it, don't stick around. But I'm
Yeah.
not molding to nothing,
Right. Right.
and
Either this
like
works for you or it doesn't. Like that's
right.
a you
And I think
problem.
we see people like I had a client not too long ago inside one of my classes, and she was talking about how she's not divorced yet, and her boyfriend already lives with her, and she was talking about all these issues with her children and her divorce, and I was just like, sister, like I'm not telling you that you're not ready to date, but there's a lot of red flags in your own life. And then trying to have this relationship on top of all the stuff that's currently going on that you can't have control. Like that's a lot. It's a lot of pressure on that relationship to be working right in the midst of kids issues, divorce issues, and building a new foundational, like that's like, let's just focus on you for a little bit during this time period,
Mhm.
and like you're trying to tackle too many things all at the same time and all of them need emotional support. And so that's the one thing I worry about. And I did it, I jumped into a relationship as soon as I got divorced. I thought I was ready.
Mhm.
Wasn't the best
Mhm.
one either and didn't work. Right. Cause I
Right.
wasn't ready for that relationship to work, but it was a good distraction, but it was all wrong, all
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah. What's the last one? Is there
Okay.
one more?
Yeah, last question. This one's so good and it's super telling of like where you're at. If you could wave a magic wand and skip past the discomfort of that post breakup period to 12 months from now, would you exercise that option?
Hell yeah. That
It's
was,
such a good question. Yeah, it's
yeah.
like, okay, if I could just skip all the shit that I'm like worried about and all the shitty attorneys and the breakup, right? And like the broken heart. If I could just like skip that and to a year from now where I'm feeling good, would I do that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like somebody said, it's definitely not the same person I married. I wouldn't consider Jared and I've been together 8 years. Not that we're married, but we've lived as if we are. On paper is the only thing that would be different for us.
Right.
Um, Jared's not the same person he was 8 years ago. I'm not the same person, but we've respected how we've changed over the years. Like when we got together, I was a parent of two, he was a parent of none. He
Mhm.
became a stepdad, then he became a dad. And
Mhm.
like, so we've evolved, but we've respected the evolving,
Yes.
and we've changed together. And it's not like you're
Yes.
not the person I got with. Well, no shit. I hope not. It's been eight
Right.
fucking years.
And I think that's the thing is like the society is still shaming people for getting a divorce. It's like you agreed you'd be together forever. Yeah, but like that it has to work. It's not just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm staying because I told them I would stay." It's like, "Is this healthy? Is this
Yeah.
working for us?"
Right.
Because people do change, and I think that's kind of the make or break of relationships a lot of times is, are you growing together or are you growing apart? And if you're
Yeah.
growing apart, then you've gotta be real with about that and just
Yeah.
and then say, "Okay, this isn't working, like, we're not in the same place," because relationships are you are supposed to be an individual that grows and evolves and figures out who you are and follows your dreams and
Yeah.
and has goals and accomplishes things and goes places. And so is your partner supportive and kind of going with you and growing with you and doing their own thing too, or are they just completely on a different path? And if
Yeah.
so, and that bothers you or that causes additional issues and other problems arise because you guys are so just not on the same path anymore, then I think it's not only okay, but
Yeah.
healthy. It's a good decision
Yep.
to say, well, then this isn't working for us anymore.
Yeah. But it's usually one person. I think when we're dealing with a lot of our clients, it's one person that can can see that we're not on the same path anymore, or I've grown and you haven't, and you've stayed still and stagnant in your life, and you're not coming and journeying on with me or for your own self.
Mhm.
And it becomes hostile because that person that's never evolved and that has never grown as a person, challenged himself, tried something new, and has just done the same every single day, that person gets their feelings so hurt and bitterness comes out, and that's where that
Yeah.
anger, then the hostility of the divorce going ugly, because one person has, and it's not like that one's better than the other. It's just that I don't want to stay where you're at, and I want
Right.
to change and see into new things. And
Right.
I
Right.
just, it's
And not
really
that they
hard.
have to it's like but are they holding you back, right? It's like they
Yes.
don't have to necessarily wanna do all the same stuff or
Right.
think all the same things, but are they still supporting you and
Mhm.
respecting you and right? Are they still your cheerleader or do you feel like it's holding you back from really being who you're supposed to be?
Yeah. I couldn't imagine Jared ever saying, no, you can't do that.
Right.
But my
Right.
ex did every single time I
Yeah.
asked to do something, where Jared's like, "Go do it." Yeah,
Yes.
sure, absolutely, and it's not even I'm asking, it's more like, "Hey, do you got the kids? I need to go do this." 100%. Just like he gets to go all day long and do whatever the hell he wants, and I'm not like, "No, you need to stay home." Like, that
Yeah.
conversation would never come from either one of us,
Right, right,
ever.
and that's just a sign of, like, a super healthy relationship. I mean,
Mhm,
it could be little things, it could be big things. Like, a couple of years ago, my husband and I were in Hawaii, and I have never been to a nude beach, and I really wanted to go to one
mhm.
just because I wanted to, like, experience what, like, I just
Hell
wanna see
yeah.
what that's all about, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, I think I want to do it, because I'm much more of like an impulsive person. He's more like a, he's my rock.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I don't think I really want to go, but like, do your thing. Like, if you really want to go, right? So he wasn't like, no, you can't go do that, or like, no, you're not gonna, right? He's like, well, I don't know if that's my thing, but go for it. Like, have fun,
We went to one, I think we were in, I don't even know where we were, Costa Rica, maybe. Yeah, I think we were in, I don't even know. No, Punta Cana. That's where we were. It was for a business trip. We had won a free trip through with my old job. And we saw
You
like
went there with coworkers to
well, I was part of an MLM. So the MLM lets you go. So yes, it was with people I knew.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was this Garden of Eden. And what we were attracted to was no kids. So we were like, let's go. Let's go to the pool that has no kids.
Yeah, right.
And when we got there,
on me or building sandcastles.
Yeah, when we got there, there wasn't very many people there, and because it had just opened. So we were sitting there, had cocktails, whatever. It was back when I drank, and we were drinking, and then all of a sudden, people started showing up, and women were just taking off their tops. And Jared was like, "I love this place," and I was like, "I think I'm gonna do it." And he's like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it." So I did it. And of course it was just a topless. I think it was topless. I don't know if you could, I think it was just topless. And so, coworkers, people that I knew started to come, and they were taking off their tops. And it was the most empowering thing. And we took pictures of each other, like pictures that we could post, but you could see that we were naked, and but he was like the biggest cheerleader of like, do it. Like, if this is what you want to do, then do it, and there is no way on this God's green earth that my ex-husband would have ever let me do that.
Right.
It would have been hell to the no.
Fights.
Oh my God. We would have been in the hotel, arguing and bitching and moaning, like, I mean, I can't even imagine. I don't even think we've been on the same plane ride home. It would have been so toxic. And then here's Jared, like, hell yeah, let's do it. And he's like, see that. And I'm like, it was a good time, Like, I think that's when you find somebody that you can be your authentic self with, it's just, it's a no brainer that person is for you. There's no judgment from that person. There's no anything. I could say, you know what? I think I want to start wearing high heels every day. He'd be like, do you, boo? Like, I'm here for back support if you need a rub down. Like, he's not gonna be like, well, I think that's stupid. Yeah. And I've never been around a man that's like that. I've always attracted the controlling type. I've always attracted the authoritative, bigger than me, I'll talk down to you type. And when you finally get to that place where you're talking authoritative to everybody, like you are in control, like you have the power, and you don't look for that anymore, you attract somebody that knows you have your shit and your decision is your decision. They're not ever going to challenge it. Like, I know Jared wouldn't challenge me because he just knows I know my own self and knows what I want for myself. And it's just, I hope my daughter finds that. I hope my son has that, that they, in their relationships, hold their own power and they don't give it to anyone else. So if you're giving it to someone else in your marriage and they own a lot of your power, some of these questions probably hurt because you were like, oh shit, I know exactly what I need to be doing. And we're your people, we're your people to help. So we hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. If you know somebody that is sitting on that fence of like, this is the episode for them, send this over to them and say, answer these questions authentically and honestly, and tell me what you think. But honestly, right now it is March 7th. So as Leah Marie said, the whole month of March, if you want to get inside the next chapter or inside of our group coaching, you get grandfathered in at the price that you purchase at this month of March. So if you're listening to this after March and it's April 1st and beyond, the new prices are up, but also we're giving so much more in those things
tons
too.
Of stuff. Yes.
So absolutely. So take a look at the links that are all posted wherever you're watching this from, and we will see you at the next episode. Bye, everybody.